This is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
Yeah, don't we all wish we'd settle for just being comfortable, wouldn't we? Welcome to Boomer Life on CIL 650. I'm George Gordon. Are you where you want to be financially? Well thought out plan for your financial future, an integral part of building the life you want for yourself and your family. Now, on Boomer Life today, we're talking about your financial future with Jim Doyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group Financial Services, Inc. On our show also today, Carmen Ruiz Ilaza with Zoomer Media, CARP, and Joy TV. And coming up in our last segment, and we want you to be here for this one, a special one, Jim's associate Paige Brettel, her perspectives on coming into this industry. Now, Jim, we've talked about people wanting to get advice and not knowing where. Is it fair to suggest that a lot of people just feel totally uncomfortable when it comes to talking about their money or being responsible for making the right money decisions?
Wholeheartedly. You know, whether it's embarrassment, a lack of financial knowledge, resignation, or disinterest, I think everyone has a desire for confidence in their financial picture. And that's one of the key objectives when we decide to work with someone. Now,
that fear, is it, and I think we've touched on this in a couple of spots, well, I should know about this, and I don't. So I'm obviously a very stupid person, and I don't want to admit that. Most people are smart enough to know that, okay, if I've got money at the end of the month, then I'm doing something right. But beyond that, they have no idea. No idea.
It's not uncommon at all for people that we talk to feel that they should know more than they know about their situation, or that they're going to be judged for some of the choices that they've made. And those can steer people away from getting a bit of advice. We want to try and help change that if we can.
You just gave me a great example of just how, even the most sophisticated, educated, intelligent people sometimes lack that information. You were at a conference not so long ago. Tell us about that.
It was an interesting dynamic, okay? We went and we talked to a group of well-heeled individuals, okay? And we thought for the most part that they, being around it on a regular basis, would have a little bit more knowledge than they did. And our whole presentation was talking about some of the fundamentals, some of the basics, okay, that real building of financial literacy, okay? And what was interesting about this is that we had a 1-hour presentation. We had an hour and a half of questions that followed it.
Oh, that's when you've got the same amount of time going to questions as you do to presentation. You sparked a lot of nerves, and was it surprising to you?
I really didn't anticipate that we would have been there for that long.
Wow.
Well,
that's good to know. So there, if you're listening, the most educated, the most, people who make big salaries sometimes don't know the proper path to plan for the future. So if you're sitting out there saying, am I in the right place? Am I going to be okay? You're not alone. And you can get information. I'm going to give you a couple of contact points for Jim Doyle here today. If you find yourself feeling stressed out about money matters, you're not alone. The first place to start, identify the financial goals and priorities. And if it sounds completely overwhelming, you can call Jim. Here's the phone number, 604-682-5431. Or check out his website at jimdoyle.ca. There's a couple of contact points, and between Jim and the trusted Paige Brettel, you will get the answers that you've been seeing. At least you'll know how to start asking more questions. As Jim says, it takes some time. You've got to get to know people. Probably one of the first questions you'll ask people is, I don't know if I can help you. Let's talk. Is that fair?
That's an absolutely fair question.
Okay. You know what, Jim? The Dow broke 20,000 for the first time this week. So you're sitting there and thinking, well, I'm not just sure what I've got invested in the U.S. Or is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Are you starting to get a lot of questions? How significant is this?
Well, I think it's a great question from the perspective of what's the relevance of this, okay? I started in the industry in the late 80s, Okay, and if you look back on the history of the Dow, okay, it took over 100 years for the Dow to hit 10,000 in 1999. Okay, and it took the next 18 years to get to 20,000. Okay, what's the relevance of that? Is the real big question. And is there a relevance? I'd probably say that there isn't. Yet people carry anxiety over questions like this.
Well, and if not being a person who has to be reminded every day that I'm not that bright about finances, am I going to pick up the phone and talk to you about it? Are there some assurances, some explanations that will give me perspective?
I absolutely want to hear from people in a situation like that, because anytime fear involved in part of your decision-making process, I want to be part of that conversation.
I understand that, that the Canadian, market's not doing so bad either. Do people understand how much they should have invested, say, in the Canadian investments versus U.S. investments versus overseas investments? That must be a never-ending wheel of change.
Well, there's an interesting dynamic that people want to chase the best performers, okay? And in today's environment, when I tell people I think you need to be appropriately diversified, sometimes it's like I'm speaking a foreign language.
What is the most common piece of advice people ask for?
Well, I think it's a perspective issue, okay? If you're going to ask me where's the market going today or tomorrow, I haven't got a clue. But what I can likely tell you, if you look at any particular quality market on a long-term basis, and you look 10, 20, 30 years from today, I think it's going to be substantially ahead of where it is right now. That's the bet that I'm prepared to make.
So think about long-term and pick your players wisely, as it were.
Well, it's all about perspective. If you look at the Dow being at 20,000 today, imagine it growing at only 4% over the next 10 years. That means the Dow is going to be in excess of 29,000 in 10 years. Okay, what's the relevance of that? Okay,
so you have to understand how that's going to impact your financial plan, if at all.
You need to plan to stay invested for the long period. Okay. If you're heading into retirement and the day that you retire is your retirement objective, I want to challenge you on that, because I got to get you into retirement and all the way through your retirement. Okay, that should be your investment objective. Have your money last as long as you're going to last.
Interesting. It brings up a point about investment versus speculating. You must deal with that a lot.
I absolutely do. Okay. The challenge is right now that a lot of folks are out there looking at information on the internet, and a little bit of information sometimes is really dangerous. Okay. It's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market, staying consistently invested. Okay. The past couple of days, markets have started to pull back a little bit on the U.S. Is that a sign of bigger and scarier things to come? Should I be out of that market altogether? 9 times out of 10, if we can have people move beyond the noise and stay, we can probably help them do great things. But the stomach sometimes overrules the head.
Yes, some people call it greed. Other people might just say, it's a chance. This is my chance to get ahead, to shore up the big plan, and that's sometimes when you can step on the rake handle and whack yourself in the face.
One of the other challenges that we often see as well is as our clients get older, their reluctance to get rid of the poor performers, okay, it's harder to do. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to come back around, Jim. I think it's going to come back around, isn't it?
It's that whole thing about you get there, and let's just say you've done it really. You know what? I'm going to save this part of the conversation for coming up, and it's like being comfortable with spending. You've been saving and saving and saving. And when we talk to Paige, we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk with you about, okay, you got to know how to spend some of the stuff so you don't let the government take it all at the very, very end. You are listening to Boomer Life on CIL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CIL 650.